What's up guys, it's Cam coming at you from the 2-6. Welcome back to Carolina Fragrance Reviews. So yes, we are in the last inning, the final 9 fragrances of 25 fragrances that I will never stop recommending. Without any further ado, let's get into this. So those first 16 fragrances were a bit tricky to, navigate through. I was, just kind of moving things around, trying to figure out, which ones have you recommended the most? And as I promised in the last video, when I said that was the meat and potatoes in the middle, and we'd have meat and potatoes and gravy, we're even gonna throw some biscuits with it. All these are top tier bangers. These are the absolute most recommended out of all these 25. So strap in your seatbelt and let's go ahead and get to fragrance number 9. So coming in at number 9 is from a brand that I have recommended numerous times, all different sorts of fragrances from this brand. But this one is the one I have recommended the most. It is Parfum de Marly Herod. Now Herod is actually the second fragrance that I smelled from Parfum de Marly. The first one was Pegasus, and I was very impressed with that. And I think Pegasus probably could come really close with maybe like Leighton. Now the way that I gauge this by being the most recommended is usually when people are just diving into niche fragrances or just trying to get into Parfum de Marly. They'd be like, yo dude, which one would you start with? So I think that Herod is perfect for that because in my opinion, I don't think recommending like Percival or Sedley, even though those are very easy to wear fragrances, when you're wanting to give somebody a little bit of a better experience, you want to give them something that is a little bit higher quality, something maybe they might not have smelled before, even though there are some fragrances that have a similar scent profile to this, but this is still niche enough to kind of cross that line without, throwing somebody on something overly complicated. Now Herod is a warm, rich, spicy tobacco and vanilla fragrance. A lot of people consider it a tobacco fragrance. It does have a note of tobacco leaf in here, but I think it kind of takes a backseat to the vanilla. You've got some spice in here with some cinnamon. You also have a beautiful note of osmanthus, that tobacco leaf that I mentioned, and there's also some musk on the dry down that is really, really good. Now, as I mentioned in a previous video when we got to talking about batch variations, when you're recommending something to someone for the first time, you don't want to go throwing all that business. Well, it's good, but it ain't as good as it used to be because they're automatically like, well, let me try something else. Give them that experience. Don't confuse them with the batch variations, even though this may not smell as pungent as it used to. Come on, man. Coming in at number 8 is a relatively new fragrance. So with it being a relatively new fragrance, that should say a lot about it being in the bottom 9 of my most recommended fragrances, because I've been recommending fragrances for a while now, but I've recommended this one a ton and I've had a ton of positive feedback. It is one of the latest releases from by KILIAN from the Liquors collection. It is Angel Share. Yes. Some of you know, you've seen it in several videos here in the past few months, and rightfully so. It gets a lot of feedback. A lot of people are interested in it. You may be new to the channel. This may be the first time you're seeing this, so be sure to check the other videos out, but be sure to check this fragrance out. If you get a chance to sample it, I would highly recommend it. It's sweet, it's attention getting, it has a beautiful note in cinnamon here. It also is one of the, well actually I won't say one of the, as far as anything that I have smelled from KILIAN, it does have the best performance. A lot of my KILIAN fragrances are great, I love them, they're amazing. I have my heart attached to several of them, but as far as big scent bubble, big performance, getting a good bang for your buck, Angel Share is just going to be that fragrance I'm going to keep on recommending. Some of the notes in Angel Share are cinnamon, cognac, oak. It almost is like a caramelized oak, if that makes sense, and tonka bean. It's in the realm of a gourmand fragrance. It definitely is, because you've got your tonka bean in here, but you also have your booziness, and then that cinnamon is just like that big attention getting note off the top. but it does have some depth to it. That oak just really just kind of settles everything down, and it almost has a slightly resinous dry down. So just a fantastic fragrance, excellent release, even though everybody was worried what was going to happen with KILIAN when they went to the EL, if you know what I'm talking about. Now, as some of you know, this fragrance was partially put on the map early on because of a lot of talk about Creed Aventus. No, I'm not pulling Creed Aventus out. Not yet anyway. Come on, man. I have had a lot of people that have actually been in the community looking around and have heard all the people talking about how bad Creed Aventus performs and everything. So, of course, with my enthusiasm about this fragrance, VILHELM Parfumerie's Morning Chess, a lot of you could see that I was really digging it. But a lot of people also, even before I really started, really pumping this fragrance, they were asking like, okay, what is the best alternative to Creed Aventus in the niche realm? So easily, hands down, especially if you're worried about performance, this one has a whole bag of Viagra in it because it definitely really performs. Now, another side note about this fragrance, this actually was featured in a DNA battle. So as you know, we did all the batch variations, we did a couple videos like that, and then a couple of DNA battles with Creed Aventus style fragrances. And I will put a link to the video with Jacob Bryant, right here. He actually chose Morning Chess over a really good assortment of Aventus DNA fragrances. Now, some of the notes in this are going to be bergamot. You also have a note of Tuscan leather, so that's where that bag of Viagra comes in. It just gives it a really nice pungency. Now, it's not overly animalic. It's got a nice mixture of the brightness from the bergamot, and then you also have a black amber and patchouli note mixed with that Tuscan leather just to give it, you just kind of pat up underneath here and see this got a nice set of balls on it. But needless to say, there have been numerous people who have hit me up on IG or down in the comments that have tried this and are completely in love with it. I've even had a couple people said that they wound up recommending it themselves. Now, the next fragrance is going to be a little bit controversial, but the fact of the matter is I have recommended this fragrance a million times. And the reason I'm gonna get controversy is because it has recently been axed, but I think it's been temporarily axed to be rebottled and sold at a less expensive price. I am talking about Tom Ford's private blend Oud Wood. Same thing applies here with the Tom Ford fragrances as it did with Parfum de Marly. Sometimes people be like, okay, dude, what Tom Ford fragrance should I start with? Oud Wood is a given. My friend Mike over at 5280, he said that like the first time he smelled this, it just took him, like when you're picking somebody up out of the designer realm and putting them over here and sticking them here, even though Tom Ford is a designer, it is definitely niche quality. When you have somebody like master perfumer Richard Herpon is the perfumer for this fragrance, yeah, this is a very manly fragrance, but when you talk about oud, a lot of people think of fecal or animalic type, just kind of funkiness or whatever. This has a very palatable oud. It really is almost undetectable in here. It's actually just to give it some body. Sandalwood is the primary wood that you get in here. So other than that little bit of oud and sandalwood, you're gonna get some amber, vanilla, and tonka in here as well. It is such a great fragrance. Definitely the easiest oud fragrance that you're going to find, unless you go with something like Boss Bottled Oud, which is not a real oud note, and that is a synthetic oud. So even though everybody got gutted and panicked when they heard that Oud Wood was being chopped from the private blend, no, God! No, God, please, no! 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 I think it will go over there with Ombre Leather and Beau de Jour and several others. And in case you guys haven't heard, they are chopping a lot more. I don't know what's going on. I hope that it's just a sign of fragrances like Patchouli Absolute and Oud Wood and several others just going and being put in that less expensive lineup. So as long as they do that, I will be able to keep recommending Oud Wood, but by far my most recommended Tom Ford Private Blend fragrance. Now the next fragrance, it just had to be here. It had to be here. It is by KILIAN Black Phantom. Yes, I did just show Angel Share, but I've recommended this much longer. And again, when people just want something that is different, unique, makes a statement that's sexy, mysterious, I actually feel like this fragrance is an extension of my personality. So yes, absolutely, I'm going to recommend it. Of course, I'm going off of my taste, but I don't personally know anybody who does not like this fragrance, even though I have seen people trash it in Fragrantica and Base Notes and different places like that. Those of you who trust my taste, you know I'm not going to throw anything at you that I think is bad or something that you won't like. This is a very, very great, sexy fragrance. So Black Phantom is a gourmandish, warm, sexy, seductive fragrance where you're gonna have some caramel. You also have some coffee in here. It's got a little bit of a booziness with some rum. It's just, oh God, just so good. This is one fragrance that when I first smelled it, I was just like, oh my God, I've got to have it. I got a sample of it and it just blew my gourd. It may not do the same for you, but people I have recommended it to, they had that same reaction. Now, one downside, again, with Tom Ford and, oh my God, lots and lots of other brands, yeah, reformulations are starting to happen when the EL buys them. And if you guys don't know what that is, I'm sure, just look who owns everything. It's basically the Illuminati of the fragrance world. But I have smelled newer formulations of Black Phantom. It still smells fantastic, but it is not as dark as this one. This one actually, I got it maybe a month after it was released, so there is a very big dent in this, so I'm gonna have to go easy with it. I might just have to go get a, a refill or something of the newer stuff that even is lighter in color. But I will keep recommending Black Phantom, whether it is dark and as mysterious. I just won't tell anybody that when I recommend Black Phantom. Now, of course, I don't want to blow all of you out of the water because I know some of you can't afford all these niche fragrances, but these are ones that I have recommended. I am a part of the fragrance community. A lot of people buy niche fragrances, more expensive fragrances. So this one is not going to have as many of the inexpensive fragrances I was recommending or showing you in that first 8 that we talked about. So just don't kill me when I break out another niche fragrance like AMBRA CALABRIA from NISHANE. Now, obviously, you guys who know me, you know that I went ham when I first got this fragrance. Again, I mean, significance in the dent. Major significance in the dent. So I eat my own cooking, which means I wear what I recommend. If I recommend something to you, I'm not gonna recommend something to you that I would not wear myself. There was somebody that left a comment not too long ago, it's like, oh, he don't like those fragrances, he's just reviewing them. Like, why would I go drop money on fragrances for review only? Not wear them, not be able to give my honest thoughts and opinions. That's just ludicrous. And I'm sure there's probably people who do that, but I'm not going to do that. I want to remain a trusted and reliable source. So with that said, AMBRA CALABRIA is fantastic. I love it. I think it's great for summertime. A lot of you guys like to wear it in the fall. As a matter of fact, I have had a ton of people come back and told me that they bought this fragrance off of my recommendation, and it was just because I was so stoked about it. This is not one that I'm like, well, just go get this fragrance. This is one where people are watching my eyes light up, and I did a review that was talking about like, where's the hype? Because I hadn't really heard anybody talk about this fragrance. Now it is kind of a household name here in the fragrance community anyway. Now this is fresh, sweet, and green, aromatic. It almost has like a lemony vibe. I did mention that. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and put my full review on this fragrance right here. But it does not have a note of lemon in here. It's just the way that the notes play together. You've got a greenness mixed with the sweetness from some bergamot, which almost gives it like a zestiness. Then it has a really nice play with the note of jasmine mixed with some coriander, and then on the dry down is when that amber and musk is really going to start popping up off your skin. This fragrance evolves a lot. It just kind of dives in and out doing different things, and even with the performance on it, you might think that it's gone and then just be walking and the wind blows, you know, off of your arm or something and you'll just catch a waft. One of the absolute best fragrances, or one of the best fragrances that I found in 2020 last year. It's just one that I could not stop wearing. It was just like, okay, I'm gonna test the fragrance out, but I'm still gonna do this over here. You know what I mean? It's like do one side, that way I can still be rocking it over here or whatever. But I love this fragrance and I will never ever stop recommending it. Now, of course, I did mention all that AVENTUS hoopla before, so obviously AVENTUS is going to be another one that I have recommended a ton. Especially here locally. I don't even know how or why. You know, people watch the channel, I think they were watching all those battles. I actually used to always post my content on my personal Facebook page, and all the people here locally would watch those videos, and I even had some of them tell me like, why don't you post your videos anymore? And I'd be like, just subscribe. And they're like, oh, nah, just post them on Facebook. I'm like, why would you not subscribe? I'm like, well, I don't need another monthly bill. I'm like, bro, it doesn't cost anything to subscribe. It's not a Patreon account. It is free content for everybody to consume. And that's why it just drives me nuts when some of these people just act so crazy in the comments over free content. It's crazy. So yeah, there might be some people like, oh, why would you say AVENTUS? Because I've recommended it a ton. I've had a lot of local guys, as far as like niche fragrances, this is by far the most recommended niche fragrance, especially to like my local people, my friends, a lot of guys, and even some girls who have smelled me. I was at Best Buy one day and there was a girl that she was like, oh my gracious, can I please ask you what you're wearing? And I told her what it was and she said, I don't care, I don't care. I showed her the price. She's like, I have to have that on my husband. I just want him to bathe in it so I can maul him. So yeah, I know some of you think that AVENTUS is, you know, like the fragrance that the dudes love, and yeah, dudes love to wear it, but ladies do love to smell it. So just in case if you're not familiar with Creed AVENTUS, just by chance, you might not have ever even heard about Creed AVENTUS. It does have pineapple, it's got bergamot, it's got birch, vanilla, patchouli, ambergris, musk. It's just an amazing fragrance and definitely the most earth-shattering, game-changing fragrance that has ever come up on the scene. Now, a lot of people are burnt out with this fragrance because there's been so much hoopla about it, but when you've got 30 different companies doing their own variation, clone, or spin-off or whatever, yeah, it is definitely the most impactful fragrance that I have ever seen come on the market. So with that said, of course, I'm going to keep recommending it. Everybody needs to at least get a decant of this, if nothing else. So the next fragrance is easily going to be the most widespread as far as people coming back to me and saying that they bought this fragrance, whether they were in Indonesia, Mexico, Dubai, wherever, Spain. Just tons of people have came to me and said, dude, thank you for turning me on to your secret weapon. And I am talking about BARAONDA from NASOMATTO. This is the epitome of sexy booziness. There's also a slight gourmand vibe to it, but it's primarily booziness and wood with a little bit of resinous, but it does have a little bit of a gourmandish vibe. Notice I said gourmand-ish. So yeah, there's enough sweetness in here to make this really, really sexy. One of my most complimented fragrances. This is my date night fragrances go-to. It's never failed me. It's never, ever, ever failed me. This is a fragrance I know that I can put on date night, first date, not knowing much about the girl at all other than we had chemistry and she was hot and I wanted to wear this. So I've had a ton of luck with this. Definitely my most complimented fragrance, especially in the niche realm. In the niche realm by far, just hands down, and definitely my most recommended and most positive feedback from people all over the world. So which would leave the #1 most recommended fragrance. Do you guys know what it is? just think hard. If you know me, you know one fragrance that I have recommended over and over and over and over again, and it is definitely my most complimented fragrance ever, period. It's been in my collection forever, and every previous version that came to be Chanel Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme. This fragrance, I mean, look, this sucker has been all sort of battled on. Yeah, you know, see some of them marks and stuff. It's been banged up. This is probably, I don't know, 5th or 6th bottle. I've been rocking it since it came out. I wore the original Allure when it came out, Allure Sport. So it is no surprise I love this DNA. It works. I do know some people that don't like it. They're like, I don't get it, I don't get it, I don't get it. But it works. Women love it. They love it, love it, love it. So if I'm not gonna wear Baraonda, I'll wear this. Like if I'm not feeling a little adventurous, I know this is gonna work. So this is a fresh, sensual, and aromatic fragrance that just, works. You've got the freshness coming from some mandarin on the top notes. You also have some musk in here, some tonka bean, a little bit of cypress wood just to kind of, envelop the whole thing together. It has amazing performance off of my skin, and yeah, I actually have been recommending this fragrance longer than any of these fragrances that I did previously. So obviously this would be the #1 pick. I've had co-workers that even when I didn't work with my family business, I did leave my family business for 4 years. I worked as a IT guy, I sold cars. I worked at Belk as a sales rep selling men's clothes, lingerie, fragrances. So yes, I have recommended this a ton. So #1 most recommended fragrance ever, Ashy. And as I mentioned about how much the ladies love this, I actually did a battle with this fragrance versus Jeremy Fragrance's Office, which is another very mass appealing fragrance. I will put the link to that video right here so you can see exactly what type of reactions the ladies got from Ashy.
The point I want to make is I learned so much.
So there we are, we're done. I actually started to put videos in between this, but I figured let me just go ahead and line them up and knock them down. Go ahead and get it out of the way. That way you guys know what my 25 most recommended fragrances are. So how did you guys feel about this last 9? Do you agree with me on these? Would you recommend these yourself? Have you even tried them? Let me know down in the comments. As always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Until next time, I'll see you on Carolina Fragrance Reviews.